Good morning, guys. How are we all doing? So, Dan from Trading with Dan here. This is our Bitcoin morning update. So, if you guys wouldn't mind smashing that like button, and we shall go straight over to those Bitcoin 4-hour charts. Yes, Bitcoin on the 4 hour looking very bullish here. Looking like we have got every opportunity to break through this next level of resistance, and well, go on a little bit of a price discovery journey up to the next levels. See where we can get up to. We probably need to draw a couple, extend a couple more horizontals. We've got one here that we need to extend. So if we pull this along, because obviously we need some targets up here. Just extend this along a little bit more. So yeah, if we break above here, initial targets potentially around 48,000, and then pretty much our first major level probably will be. Well, I say first major level. That is our first major level, 48,000, and then we'll have this sort of first major level of actual resistance area, basically around 50,000. So above 50,000, we get to go on an exciting journey of price discovery again, if we get that far. But initially, if we break over these recent highs and this recent resistance, of about 46,500, we could round it up to 47,000. Then yes, targets of 48,500, and then ultimately we have an important area around here. Then the next area after that will be around 52,000. So like I have been saying, we are hoping, what we are doing here is establishing a new range. We kind of can't really expect Bitcoin just to keep continuing in a straight line onwards to new all-time highs. We do know we'll have to consolidate and trade sideways at some point. It is just a question of from what levels that will be from. So we want the lower bounds to be 42,000, and then we are trying to establish where the higher level will be. I don't think this is not a wide enough range where we're currently at now. We do need to make our ways higher. This, I would say, is not necessarily the most major of level, but I do think potentially around 50,000, and if we do break over 50,000, around this 52, 53,000 ish area, we could establish the rate. That could be a wide enough range for us to establish, and then we will potentially trade sideways. We'll probably at some point get some more FUD come in the market, maybe come down and test the 42,000, hopefully hold 42,000, continue trading sideways, and eventually break back up into what at that point we could have a straight moonshot relatively quickly towards the all-time highs and then beyond. But yeah, we shall have to see. I mean, in a perfectly orderly, ideal market fashion, what we would want to see is basically we establish a range here, trade sideways, and then we establish a range at these previous all-time highs. So basically between 65,000, and then obviously that 52, 53,000, trade in this range for a bit sideways and then break up. But that would be an extremely aesthetically pleasing stair step upwards. So if we have this range, so 1 step, 2 step, and then 3 step, and then parabola, and then J hook, hockey stick, whatever you want to call it, to basically 100,000 and beyond. So yeah, some absolute total crystal ball stuff there, but yeah, that is kind of what in an ideal world we want to see this market do. I mean, if we do just keep continuing straight up here, it's just not the most sustainable price action, and then we open ourselves up to big drops down, and then potential new bear markets, new 50% pullbacks, new consolidating around the lows, and then we always run the risk of them breaking down even lower. So more sustainable price action is always better. that is always a better plan. But yeah, either way, we are looking good here to try and break above here, establish a new level, establish a new high somewhere in the next range. Obviously, targets of this target here, and then ultimately, if we can get up to here, this may be a wide enough range for us to trade sideways in. For a few weeks, maybe even a month, maybe even longer. I suspect it wouldn't potentially be longer. Obviously, at this point, we're trying to reverse this big move down. So if you kind of think of like an analogy of like an oil tanker, it kind of takes a bit more to reverse it, completely reverse it. If we get into establish a new range here, and then we're actually trying to break higher, then we're not actually reversing the move up. We've moved up, so we're in a potential upward trend. So we're not reversing, so we potentially don't have to stay. It won't take us long for us to then gather the momentum after easing off to then break through to the upside. So obviously there was a lot more indecision down here than there will potentially be if we establish a sideways range and start to trade towards the upper level of it. It would be a lot more easier for us to break through the top than it potentially was for us to break through the top of this range. Although we did make it look pretty easy on this attempt, but obviously these ones we didn't. So yeah, let's have a look at that Ethereum Satoshi pairing. Try and give us an overall potential health of the crypto market, even though we kind of know it is looking good. But yeah. Looking like a sort of pennant forming here, potential bull flag after this move up. So yeah, if this does get us going, I mean, we have pretty much got the well, actually we must have drawn this target from this little pennant here. I think now we've clearly got a wider one, so we could potentially redraw that. I won't do it at present. But yeah, you could potentially draw the pennant here, at which case this would be the flagpole, and then its breakout point would be here. In fact, shall we just do it for fun? We'll do it just to see what it kind of comes up with for us. That's where we're gonna draw this. This is probably better. We'll draw it like this. We'll just grab our previous flagpole as what we may use. Pop that in there. Pull this down to about here, and then pull this along to see what targets we get. And well, I forgot what our previous targets were, but yeah. It will take us basically nicely through this next major level of resistance. So that's basically what we require of this formation. Is for it to break us through this next high. Obviously this high was a difficult level to get through, and we're obviously playing around with that now. We are above it, but we could get rejected here and come back down, but we are looking good. The next important level is getting above this high, and then obviously basically this takes us up pretty much to the previous high. So at that point, we would expect us to continue onwards and upwards. But yeah, so a bit of redrawing what's going on there. Let's have a look at the USD pairing. This is clearly looking fantastic. We are flirting with a similar level to what Bitcoin is here. And yeah, I mean, next target would be about 3,400. And then have we drawn this? Yeah, this looks like it's in roughly an okay place. We could draw this as a range, as a sort of zone, but I will just not do that at the moment. But yeah, so if we continue upwards, break above this level, next level 3,400 just over, and then 3,800, and then well, then we're getting towards the all-time high, aren't we? We'll be getting wet and wild with some Ethereum nice price discovery. So yeah, this is obviously assuming everything stays good. Like I said, we've got this wide range in Ethereum. We want to establish a new sideways sort of range here to trade in. We want this to be the low of it. We want to widen this range so we get far away from this low, so when we do have some pullbacks, we've got plenty of room to run into this low and then turn back up. We obviously don't have plenty of room run into this low at the moment. If there was some FUD kind of smashed us down. Bitcoin dominance at our important level again, obviously getting nicely rejected by this this trend line. You don't often see them try and test it so many times, but I mean, well, there we go, we had it. So yeah, lose this horizontal, yeah, we're looking more downside. Obviously lose this low, more downside. Losing this low, losing this horizontal area, then yeah, then it's not curtains, it's obviously great basically, and it's not even curtains for Bitcoin, because obviously this is against Bitcoin. This would probably happen with Bitcoin still trending upwards, so Bitcoin still doing fine, just altcoins getting some of that euphoria. Stock market is just looking great here, but I mean, they need to break. Well, we need an expansion of volatility, and obviously we'd rather it to be to the upside. We have tested down quite a few times, so yeah, potentially it will be a break to the upside. But yeah, either way, got to keep an eye on that. Will potentially drag these markets about. What is good to see. What is good to see is that there is obviously taper talk from the Fed, and markets should basically hate that. But they and obviously bond markets are reacting to this, so this is the 10-year, its yield is increasing, and stock markets are holding in there. Well, that's not stock markets, but stock markets are holding in there, so that is obviously incredibly bullish. We do know these markets are addicted to the easing, the quantitative easing. So obviously taper talk is basically it's like taking away the drugs. But what I mean, I do kind of suspect we may, towards the end of this year, there is like a lot of talk about it amongst finance professionals that, like, yeah, October time you could get like a bit of a difficult time, October, September. And yeah, that could obviously coincide with well, it's basically the September FOMC meeting and what will come out of there. But yeah, at some point we may have a Wile E. Coyote moment where the stock market is basically trundling along at its highs, potentially pushing upwards, whilst this 10-year yield is creeping upwards, and then all of a sudden, like, the stock market will like look down, see that yields are way higher than what realistically is good, will stock markets can cope with, and then we'll have like a big pullback. So yeah, we've got that risk. We have got that risk, but at the moment, stock markets are sort of not so worried about this move. I think obviously they may start to really worry if we we can either look at the previous highs, or if we get above, like, say, if we get over two. I mean, we can't. I don't think the stock market will continue doing what they're doing. If we get towards 2%, I think it will. I think they will. I think Wile E. Coyote will look down well before this point. But yeah, once we start to approach these levels and look like we can continue higher than these highs, then I think there will start to be panic. Don't forget, there is also the possibility that inflation is indeed transitory, in which case that obviously the 10-year yield will come down if we do end up with more disinflation. So yeah, got to keep an eye on that. But ultimately, at the moment, whilst ever the stock market can cope with this move up in yields, then yeah, I mean that is obviously incredibly bullish if companies think they can handle higher rates, because ultimately we all know that everybody from the national to the core company level to the personal level is pretty much laden with debt, that actually we can't sustain higher interest rates in any way, shape or form at all. But yeah, whilst ever we continue and just ignore that fact, then fantastic. The release valve is obviously going to be the currency. But the currency at the moment, bearing in mind this is a relative trade, is in the next level. So, I mean, also stock market shrugging this off. I mean, this is obviously going up because the yield on the currency is going up. Therefore, its value is going up relative to other currencies. But yeah, this is looking pretty good for a move higher. So it is somewhat intriguing that stock markets are able to handle this. Also, Bitcoin as well, potentially. But I mean, at the end of the day, Bitcoin has already had a big, massive pullback, and it is nowhere near its all-time high. So obviously, whatever correlation between this has got some play in it. But yeah, this is looking good for more moves up in the dollar. So I mean, the only thing that really is reacting to this is obviously the gold and silver markets that are clearly hating life at the moment. I think the big problem, I can't remember exactly who I was listening to the other day on one of the many financial podcasts that I'll listen to on a daily basis, but I did hear someone basically talking about how gold is basically losing its sort of monetary status, whereas Bitcoin is gaining its monetary status. So Bitcoin is going through the process of becoming a currency, a usable currency, whereas gold is now basically going through the not being used process of a currency, so being less important as a currency. So I mean, it's clearly reflected in the charts. As to whether that is just someone putting an analysis to basically the chart in hindsight, but I mean, clearly Bitcoin is performing. Clearly, Bitcoin is, since its inception, has been increasingly being used more and more so, and people aren't making these cross-border payments in gold, are they? Let's face it, people aren't basically making payments, doing things, earning yield in gold. I mean, it is almost like I am almost coming around to the idea that yeah, gold doesn't really stand much of a chance. But then you guys will also know I don't really bang on about gold so much as the more silver, because silver is still a commodity. Also, it is never is. I mean, finance professionals tell you gold, silver, it just isn't a monetary metal anymore. It is just an industrial metal. And if you do look at basically commodities, they are going up. So you could maybe even look at silver is getting dragged down by gold. But ultimately, gold is getting dragged down for reasons that are that shouldn't be dragging silver down, and silver should actually be going up along with like all other commodities like copper, all industrial metals, and soft commodities, and also oil, energies as well. So yeah, I mean, at some point there may be a big move in the gold silver ratio, but at the moment it's playing by the classic the higher beta play. So when it moves down, the higher beta silver moves down more, and therefore this ratio goes up. But yeah, like I said, at some point that could severely reverse. I mean, if we do want to look at this overall trend, I mean, it's not really anything. Well, I suppose it could move up further from here, but I just fundamentally I don't think it's going to reverse this trend. I think it's going to basically collapse. As silver just becomes more valuable relative to gold, just because gold becomes just less valuable because of Bitcoin, and then just general inflation and need for silver goes up, especially if we're having like lots of EVs and things like that and all that cool stuff. What else do you want to look at? I think we've covered everything in quite a bit of detail here. The first and foremost, what I will say is that we've got the main take from just looking at these wider markets is that with the 10-year creeping up and the dollar creeping up and the stock market staying at the high, that is clearly there is clearly a lot of confidence in basically companies to start to do well, whatever that means in this environment. So yeah, there we go. But like I said, at some point we will have to have a big pullback in stock markets. But again, it will be a case of how high do we get first before we do that, what level in the DXY or what level in the 10-year triggers that. So, and then at that point it'll probably have a bit of a drag on Bitcoin also. But at the moment, everything is just business as usual, continuing as we are, things looking good. Yeah, so other than, yeah, let's look at the stochastics. 4 hour looking good, turning back up here, 4 hour looking good. So that is looking good to basically get us bust us above this out of this basically level of resistance. 10-year still hanging up there. 12 hours actually turning back up here, but at a very high level. Daily still moving up, and then we've got 2-day getting toppy, and then the big guns that 3-day getting kind of up there as well. And then the baton, which needs to be passed to obviously the 5-day, the weekly, and the bi-weekly, which are going to dictate our potential move up to all-time highs, if that is to be so. But I mean, looking at this 2-year, if we have sort of a channel here, we have basically got a low, a higher low, and a higher low. If we then put in a higher high, and a higher high up here, if this bi-weekly gets up here, there is zero doubt that we will be at over 100k Bitcoin. Zero doubt. So let's see if that happens. So let's see if that is what indeed is going to happen. So yeah, that is it, guys. Remember, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always do your own research, and I shall speak to you guys soon.